Okay. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about our internal metrics, things that we use to kind of measure, are we doing okay? And so the first thing we're going to be looking at is our key performance indicators, our KPIs. And those 4 things, what's one of them we've talked about already? Revenue, good. So our total, how much money we bring in. What else? Our average daily rate.
RevPAR.
What does RevPAR stand for? Revenue per available room. And then the last one is occupancy, okay? So everyone has a card. You all picked your cards. I want you to get into your groups together. What do we have? 2, 3, 4, and 6. Okay? So 2's come over here. 3's in the back over there. 4's in the front here. 6 is in the back over there. There should be 3 people per group. Okay?
Can I leave the rest of my stuff here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Just move it.
2's, 3, 4, 6.
6 in the back, right?
Yep. All right, 2's, you've got revenue. Okay. 3's in the back. Y'all have occupancy percentage. Okay. 3's, occupancy percentage.
What?
Occupancy percentage. That's what you're doing.
Yeah,
Number 4's, you're doing average daily rate, ADR, and 6's, you're doing RevPAR. Okay, revenue per available room. So what I want you to do is I want you to read that chapter or that section in the book about your different KPI, and then I want you to write the key points about that. So of course we want to have the formula on there. The formula is given in the book, but then like maybe pick one of like the key, like why is RevPAR different from ADR, and what makes ADR special? Like why do we have ADR? And then the total revenue as well as occupancy percentage, okay? So those 4 things, and then I want you to create 3 practice scenarios. So come up with 3 different numbers, 3 different problems, and we're gonna work them out, okay, in class. I'm going to give you a piece of paper that you can write on, but write everything on a piece of paper first, and then transfer it over to this giant piece of paper that we can come up. So don't write your answers to your 3 math problems on the big piece of paper, okay? So I'm going to give you a few minutes, about 3 minutes to read that section, and then give you about 3 minutes to figure out what you're going to write, and then I give you about 3 minutes to go ahead and write everything. All right, so the first group that's going to present is room revenue. Come on up. Room revenue. Everyone give your full attention up here to the front.
You guys all see that? We don't want to put it up.
All right, so tell us about room revenue.
Okay, well, the book actually talks about revenue as a whole, and it told us that revenue is the amount of sales measured in the appropriate currency generated from the sale of goods and services. So whatever you're selling helps generate revenue. It doesn't take into account what you spent or anything like that. It's just revenue to start with, right?
So it can be compared as current over last year, actual versus budget, the fiscal year to date, or any other way that serves a purpose for like statistics, reports.
And then our last thing, you can do the problem if you want because it's yours.
Revenue can also be broken down by revenue centers. So right now we just specifically looked at the room management, but you can also look at the food and beverage, the spa, and stuff like that.
So all of that generates revenue, but the formula in the book really just talks about room revenue to get us started. So, and then the formula is pretty basic. It's just the room nights sold times the room rate. And in the book, it gave us a very generic formula or problem with one cost of the room nights, but we have a different little problem. So can I go over it?
Okay.
Okay, so the the problem is going to be the hotel sold 30 rooms for $189. They also sold all 5 suites for $430. What is the total revenue?
All right, good question. Okay, so the rooms, we sold 30 at 189, and we sold 5 suites at 430. So what's our basic formula up there? It says room nights sold times the rate charged. Thank you, Alfred. So now we just do 30 times 189, and we do 5 times 430. Is the total or for each one? Let's do each one first. What's 30 times 189?
5670.
5,650.
5670.
Okay.
And then the 2150.
So you see we have to do each room type first, and then what do?
Add 'em up.
We add it all up, and that is going to give us our total revenue, which is 7,820. Okay, so that's our total room revenue. See how that works? Excellent, very good job. Thank you so much. Up next is our occupancy percentage. All right, tell us about occupancy percentage.
Occupancy percentage is one of the most common performance measures in the lodging industry. It expresses the portion of rooms sold to the total room.
The formula for occupancy percentage is room nights sold in a period divided by room nights available in that same period times 100.
Okay.
And then occupancy percentage, it's one of the most common performance that measures in the lodging industry.
Alright, so our problem is on the night of Fiesta, La Quinta had 230 rooms available in the hotel. They sold 215 rooms at the end of the night. What was the occupancy percentage?
Okay, so they had 230 rooms in the hotel. How many did we sell? 215 rooms sold. And so this is our percentage, which is 215 rooms. That's our part over the 230 rooms, which is this whole. And we get what? 0.93. Okay.
There's more to it. It's 98.
Okay, so 0.9347826, all of that, right?
Yeah.
So 0.9347, when we multiply by 100, we're simply moving this decimal place over 2 spots. Okay, so this is actually 93.5% occupancy. It's okay to have 1 decimal place when it comes to occupancy because 93 is different than 93.5. We can't round this to 94 because that's creating occupants when we don't have them, right? We can't round up for sure, but right now we're looking at 230 rooms. Think about a Vegas hotel that has 5,000 rooms in it. 5,000 rooms, that 0.5% is different than if you're related to, right? So it's okay to have 1 decimal place when it comes to percentages. All right, so good, excellent. Average daily rate, ADR.
Average daily rate expresses the average room rate a guest pays for rooms in a given time period.
It is the expectation of ADR is that it will gradually, so it will increase from year to year.
And comp rooms are not included in the average daily rate.
And the formula is going to be the net room revenue divided by the number of rooms sold.
Okay, so let me real quick, as you just interject that net revenue, okay?
Yeah.
So if you look up here on the screen, we have total room revenue and we have net room revenue, okay, on the bottom. And so what's interesting is the net revenue takes out these guest acquisition costs, okay? What's that? Yeah, Patricia.
that the hotel pay, like for third parties, like what they pay Expedia or Travel,
Yeah.
whatever those are. The cost it costs them to get, because they have to pay those companies for each room they book.
Exactly. So we could do a total room revenue of, of $1,000 or whatever. But if we had some that booked through hotels.com and we had to pay them, then we can actually subtract those costs and create that net room revenue. So it's a little bit more accurate than that total room revenue. So y'all are using the net revenue, okay? So talk to us.
Our formula, or our question is, we have a net room revenue of $93,274.
Okay.
We sold 626 rooms, and we have a total of 700 rooms.
Okay.
So what was the ADR?
How many did you sell?
626.
626 rooms sold. You gave us extra information. Y'all are tricky. Okay, so that gives us an average daily rate of $149. Okay, excellent, good. All right, last one is RevPAR. Come on up, RevPAR. All right, go for it.
Hello everyone, here we have our RevPAR. It evaluates business success as well as realizing business potential.
Also, RevPAR is used to compare statistics on different nights when we have different rates and occupancy percentages.
And the formulas are RevPAR equals net room revenue for a period divided by total rooms available for that period. And then the RevPAR also equals the net ADR times the occupancy percent.
Absolutely. So you can find the RevPAR based on room revenue divided by the rooms available, or by the ADR times the occupancy percentage. So either way, you can find this. It'll give you the same number. Okay. So what is your question? Let's talk about it. Go for it.
Didn't quite get it all on there.
That's okay.
But, at $95 rate per night, we can expect that maybe 70% of it was going to be occupied. And so we'll multiply $95 by the 70, and we should have, I think, $76.50.
How many rooms are needed?
Okay, so in this case, you did $95 times the 70% occupancy.
Right.
And so your $95 was your average daily rate, what we looked at, okay? So, and then you multiplied by our 70% occupancy that we have in-house, and what was our ADR? $66.50? Okay. So that means our revenue per available room was actually $66.50. So as we figure out our total ADR, so we take our total revenue, divide that by the number of rooms, or the number of rooms that we sold. That was our average daily rate. We also have our occupancy percentage, and that's going to give us what our revenue per available room. Okay, so let's do one now where we do a total revenue divided by the total rooms available. Okay, you have one? Okay, awesome. So that's one example. Excuse me.
So the rate per night is $135.
Okay.
And then total rooms is $250. And we have 176 rooms occupied.
Okay. So the rate is $135. Oops. Okay, we're just going to talk this one through because I can't go back. All right, so the rate is $135. Okay. And how many rooms did we sell?
176.
Okay, so 135 times 136 rooms sold.
70.
Sorry, 176.
Yes.
Okay, that gives us our total revenue of,
23,760.
okay, so that's our total revenue. But how many rooms do we have available in the hotel?
250.
So we divide that number by our 250 rooms available, and we get,
95.
okay, so if our average daily rate is 135, we didn't quite fill our hotel up, and so our ADR is 95.04, okay? So if this room is 200, if this hotel has 250 rooms, we can compare this with another hotel that has 300 rooms using our ADR, okay? Questions, comments, concerns? Good, excellent. Good. All right. So our internal metrics, okay? These are things within the hotel. These are things that we're gonna compare with ourselves, okay? It looks at our own data, and we have access to our data. So in that regard, our internal metrics, they're a little bit more accurate. I can't compare my data with my competitor's hotel specifically, and so my data is more, my internal metrics are more accurate than if I was gonna compare it to somebody else, okay, the external. 3 different common standards that we use. They mentioned it in the revenue section, is what we did in the past. So our past data. What is it called when we use past data to predict the future? Forecasting, okay? It's called forecasting. Budgeted, so at the, usually towards the end of the year, we start creating our budget for the next year. And so whatever we budget for, we can compare that number of what's actually happening to our budget to see if we're doing okay. And then also we can look at the industry averages. So we'll look at that, all 3 things here just right now. So the first one, historical figures. Is $115 a good ADR? Yes or no?
No.
I think it depends, absolutely. Okay, so if we're thinking about our historical figures, if in the past our ADR was 120 and 124, is 115 a good number? No. But if we look at the past and our ADRs were 104, 109, 115 shows that we're on a trend of growth, okay? And so we have to look back. Now, you have to look back at equal characteristics, or what's the word I'm looking for? It'll come to me in just a minute. Equal factors, yeah. So can I compare April 1st of 2019 to April 1st of 2018 in San Antonio?
No.
What happened in 2019? What happened in 2018 that did not happen in 2019? The Final Four, right? And so I can't look at, my numbers are probably not going to be as great in 2019 as they were in 2018 because I don't have this major festival, this major competition that's coming in. So you want to look at the equal environment of what's going on, okay? We can even look at what happens if Valentine's Day is on a weekend versus Valentine's Day on a weekday, right? And so all those different criteria have to kind of line up to figure out how we're gonna predict in the future, okay? But using that past data. Budgeted figures, like I said, we put a budget together. So if 115 good, we don't know. If we budgeted our ADR would be 110, well then we are doing better than what we budgeted. But if we budgeted for a 125 ADR, then we're not doing as good as we thought we were going to, okay? And then there are industry averages, okay? Industry averages, one of the most widely used reports that hotels subscribe to is the STAR report, Smith Travel Research, okay, the STAR report. And the STAR report uses these 3 things: occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR. And it uses the competitor set, the comp set. Okay, so these are comp sets. We establish what our comp set is. We want to make sure that we're looking at roughly the same size of a hotel. okay? It can be the amenities that we offer. The different levels of service, so is it full service, is it select service, is it resort, okay? And then the geographic location as well. So is the JW Marriott and the Hyatt Hill Country Resort in the same comp set? So JW Marriott is up 281 North. Hyatt Hill Country Resort is all the way over by SeaWorld. And the La Cantera Resort is at La Cantera, somewhere in the middle. Are all three of those in the same comp set? What do you think? Yes or no? No? Why not?
Separate locations for a specific type of audience.
Okay, so they're in different locations, so that's one thing to consider.
The level of service, one's a resort.
So they're all resorts.
But what if we were doing like within San Antonio? So we could look at all of those on that level.
Exactly.
All the resort hotels in
Yeah.
San Antonio would make them geographically.
They are all within the San Antonio area, they're all resorts, and so then they are all part of that same comp set, okay? Now, somebody who's gonna go to the JW, of course, SeaWorld is right next to the Hyatt Hill Country Resort, so they may cater to a different clientele, but at different times of the year, we just don't know. But primarily because they are all resorts, they all are going after that same resort clientele, okay? And so they would be, even though they're not directly next to each other, okay? Another example of that is Hotel Emma is in the Pearl. And so an example of a comp set for Hotel Emma might be the Valencia Hotel, the Macara Hotel downtown, because they're all luxury boutique hotels. Okay, so they may not be next to each other, but they all kind of go after that same clientele. Okay, so don't just think that just because you're far away from each other, that you're not in that same comp set. Same thing, we've talked a little bit about the La Quinta at the convention center compared to the Marriott. So La Quinta is traditionally a select service brand. This La Quinta by our convention center is actually a full service. They have a bar, they have a restaurant, they have meeting space. Because they're a convention hotel, they may not be able to do the same size of a group as the Marriott, but they still kind of feed that same purpose. So if a group is a citywide, meaning that they use multiple hotels and they're using the convention center as their kind of meeting spot, then at that point they would be in competition because they're both literally right across the street from the convention center, okay? So comp sets can change, and we'll talk about that later on throughout the semester. So contribution margin. What's the root word of contribution? Contribute, okay? So the way I remember contribution margin is what's left over that contributes to our profit, okay? That contributes to our profit. So we take that room rate and we subtract that variable cost. Variable cost is only incurred when we sell that room. So what might be an example of a variable cost?
Shampoos and stuff.
Yeah, all the amenities in the room. If we don't sell the room, do I have to replace those shampoos? No, I don't have to, okay? And so that's a variable cost. What's another example of a variable cost? The labor to clean the room, the housekeeper. If the room isn't sold last night, do I need to send somebody in to clean it? I don't, okay? So labor and then the amenities. And then we could also look at potentially any of the costs of acquiring those guests. So any kind of cost related to hotels.com or Expedia, we could also look at those as variable costs. Because if we don't sell it, we don't incur that cost, okay? So, check, we got that one. Traditionally, housekeeping labor and then restocking the guest room, check. And then they could be different by different room types. So at Hotel Emma, the standard guest room has the standard size, or like the traditional hotel size guest amenities. But when you get a suite, you have a standard size guest amenity. So it's a larger guest amenity, which means it costs us more if we have to replace that. Check. Yes.
What about, because I've seen now
out that like hotels are using like the pumps, not the babies.
Mm-hmm.
So what do they just like have to figure out what's your average usage of each?
That's a very good question. I've not
Like,
actually
how
thought
would
about
they-
that.
How would they determine their variable costs with those pumps? Cause like they're pretty big.
Yeah. So you might think like
Like how
maybe
much-
the average person uses
Three
two,
pumps
like
or
whatever the volume of 2 pumps or 3 pumps is, if it's like an ounce or 2 ounces. Maybe that would be a way that maybe I need to ask about that.
Cause I used to do that at a salon, like I had to keep track of like overusage of product.
Uh-huh.
So like they would use an average of 2 pumps of shampoo or whatever. And so
Right.
I would know how many I have in that bottle and how much it costs pretty much for each use.
Yeah,
Well, that's like with
absolutely.
alcohol, like when you're a bartender,
Yeah.
same thing, you have to kind of know the ounces, because it's a big bottle, you can't know.
So how many servings you're gonna get out of that bottle? How many
So you can
And
usages?
what the cost is of each use.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good. I had never thought about that.
And
So
I think because they also come in the big bags, I mean, they don't have, I thought it was like a bag they pour into, so it's gonna take them a while to figure out how many bags are used on average for
Yeah.
each room type. And I mean, that's gonna depend on, is there one person staying in the room or 2 or 3, and then.
absolutely.
People always lie and say, oh, it's just me, and they have like 5 people sitting in the room.
When you're young. Now I'm like, hey, nobody stay in my room but me.
Awesome. That's a very good point. And also too, typically, because if you're buying in bulk like that, it's cheaper than buying the individuals. So there might be the cost savings there as well, just by buying in bulk. But that's a very good question. I'll have to ask somebody, figure out a hotel that's doing that, and maybe talk. You're switching over. So ask your executive housekeeper how they are determining the cost per usage for that. Excellent. All right, so really cool. The reason why we use this contribution margin, because again, like those variable costs, we only incur those costs if we actually sell the room. So this is one reason why I love math, because there's an actual formula that will say, if we change our rate, what occupancy do we have to reach in order to maintain the same revenue? So if I don't sell any more rooms, let's say my rate's really high and I'm not really selling, well, if I were to drop my rate, I would still need to get to this next level of occupancy in order to make that identical net revenue. And if that seems too impossible, then maybe I would just keep my rate the same and then just have that lower occupancy level, okay? So let's look at a couple of different things, okay? So we have our current occupancy percentage of 72. Our ADR is 140. So maybe we're not picking up as much as we thought we were going to. Maybe our occupancy is projected to be 80% in our budget, but we're at 72. Well, we look at our ADR and our ADR is 140. So maybe people are staying away from our hotel because the ADR is too high for them, okay? And so if we want to maybe consider dropping to 125, it's kind of a drastic drop, but we want to consider dropping to 125, then we need to look at this and it'll tell us what occupancy we need to maintain in order to keep that same level of revenue, that identical net revenue, okay? And we use that net revenue because remember, we're taking out our variable costs. So we take our variable costs out of each one. So 140 minus 14, 125 minus 14. Then we multiply that by our current occupancy percentage, okay? And then by multiplying by 100, then we get it back to our normal percentage number. That just moves those decimal places, okay? So in order to maintain the identical net revenue in this scenario, I have to increase my occupancy percentage by like almost 10%.
That's a big drop in rate.
That's if we drop in rate, yeah. So if I drop in rate and my occupancy starts increasing, what am I going to do? I'm going to put that rate back up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm starting to attract people now. Maybe I'll go up to 130.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go up to 135. Okay, and so of course that rate is going to change But if we're looking at just keeping it the same, then I need to make sure that I can maintain an 81% occupancy to maintain that same level of revenue. If I don't achieve 81% occupancy, then I'm not going to have the same level of revenue as if I would have just kept my rate at 140 at the 72% occupancy. Okay? Questions about that? We're going to do a couple practices, so don't worry.
This is kind of off topic a little bit, but
Yeah.
what if hypothetically for Valentine's Day, a hotel just knew that they were going to be completely booked, the ADR was going to be skyrocketing, they just threw the rate up, and it was probably going to be the highest they ever had it. Is that unheard of? Is that
No, not at all. That's good revenue management because there's probably previous periods of time, or at this case, since we're talking about Valentine's Day early in the year, there's probably going to be other times during the later part of the year that our ADR is not going to be as high and our occupancy is not going to be as high. And so if we know on these special occasions that we can drive that rate and if people will pay it, then absolutely, yeah.
Especially if it's like on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
The weekday, the weekend. And like when the Final Four, everybody jacks up their prices. Fiesta, everybody jacks up their prices.
Absolutely. So, a friend of mine, she owned the Comfort Suites downtown. They put a block of rooms. They put some rooms into a room block so that it wasn't available to the online travel agents, and they weren't selling those rooms. And then just before Final Four, they released those rooms, put a $500 a night, and then they put a 4-night minimum. You had to stay all 4 nights. Even if your team lost on day 2, I'm so sorry. We have to stay all 4 nights. So she was getting $2,000 for a room at the Comfort Suites downtown San Antonio during Final Four.
Wow.
Final Four's not here, 2019, she can't get that $500 rate for those rooms again, right? And so it all kind of, you want to compare apples to apples, okay? So let's look at an example here, okay? So our new occupancy percentage. So we take our current ADR, which is, and then we take our new ADR, or our proposed ADR, which will be, okay, we subtract 15 from each of those. I'm gonna write it up here, 194 divided by 104, and we get 1.87. What I recommend is that you don't clear out your calculator, okay? Don't clear out your calculator, just keep all those numbers behind it, okay? And then what's the next thing we're gonna do? Multiply by our current occupancy percentage, so times 0.6.
Did I do that wrong? It's 179.
Oh, yes, sir.
The 119.
Oh, I did 119, sorry. I was like, why does that number seem so off? 179, thank you. This is 164. Okay, so let's do 194 divided by 164. That gives us 1.18, blah, 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 whatever. And then we multiply that by 0.6. And we get what? 70.9? Yeah, so 70.9 will give us 71% occupancy. So I need to increase my occupancy by 11%. Is that doable? What if it's tomorrow? Is that doable? Maybe not. It depends. Do a whole bunch of Facebook blasts. Yeah, don't forget, come stay in our hotel, right? So if it's tomorrow, it may not be doable. If it's next month or if it's 6 months out, then it probably might be doable. So again, it also depends on what is our increase, but then also what is the time period that we're looking for, Okay, so let's do one more. So our new occupancy percentage equals, what was our current ADR? 285. We're gonna drop it by $90. Holy cow. Is that $90 or $70? $90. Yep. So 285 minus 20 is 265. Divide by 165. No, 175. Just kidding. 175. We multiply that by our current, which is 35% occupancy. Times 0.35. And we need to get to 53% occupancy to maintain that identical net revenue. Okay? Hopefully 35% is not what we've got for tomorrow in the books. But if it is, if it is it okay? Probably not. Is it gonna work out? We've got Fiesta coming up, we have rodeo coming up, we have spring break. It'll probably even out in the end. Okay? Hopefully. Okay? So questions about identical net revenue? Nope? Okay. So marginal revenue and cost. So marginal is just if we sell one more unit. So think back that one we did just before. That variable cost was $20, right? So that's that marginal revenue, that marginal cost is if we sell that, it's going to cost us $20. Marginal revenue is just what we get in if we sell one more unit. How many of y'all have been at the front desk of a hotel and they're like, I know, they come in at midnight and they're like, I want a $35 rate. Well, I know if you don't sell it to me now, you're not going to get any money. So you might as well get some money for some. I was like, yeah, but if I don't sell it to you, I don't have someone has to clean it. I have to replace all the shampoo, potentially the towels that you're going to take.
So
you just never know.
What's your variable cost?
What's your variable cost? And then go $10 more. Yeah, I know. It's like, I'm so sorry. My best available rate is, the best I can do is this today, right? Yeah. So GoPar helps us look at our cost efficiency, okay? It helps us look at our cost efficiency. So it's our gross operating profit per available room. Oftentimes people that are like management companies, if they're going after a contract of a hotel, or if their contract is up for review, oftentimes the investors will look at this gross operating profit because that will tell them how well they are able to manage those costs, those variable costs. So with the gross operating profit, we take the sales and we take out any operating expenses. So those variable costs, the labor, the materials to like the amenities, all that stuff we're going to take out of the revenue to get our gross operating profit. And then we'll actually use that number instead of the revenue. They could be selling the rooms all day long, but if they're not managing their costs, then in the end, are we really being are we really taking care of the investment? And so management companies are often evaluated by how well they manage this gross operating profit. So it deals with our cost efficiency, gross operating profit. Other measures are total revenue per available room. So kind of going back to what total revenue was talking about, they were focusing primarily on the room revenue, but we can also look at the total revenue. We can look at all outlet centers, all revenue centers, okay? We can look at our revenue per available customer. So how many guests did we have in-house? What's an issue with our revenue per available customer? We have customers that don't spend the night, possibly. Okay, so maybe they're just eating in our restaurants. Good. Going to the spa. To Michaela's point.
Major difference between leisure and group business.
Okay, yeah, so group business might spend more or less based on leisure business. But back to Michaela's point is that somebody might check in and there's 5 people in that room, but they only said there's only 1 person in that room. And so sometimes you don't have a totally accurate count of the actual number of customers that we have available. And the same thing, we can do our spending per stay. So we can look at our total revenue and see what people are spending on average per stay. So all of these numbers, all this information is found in our property management system. Every time someone pays for something by the pool, for a drink or for food, it goes into the total revenue, and then we can use all that information to figure out these different types of metrics. Yes?
I have a question. What if the hotel, they don't have a restaurant, but they're connected to a restaurant? Like maybe there's a Chili's and you can just get to the Chili's from the restaurant,
Yeah.
I mean, from the hotel. Does that part of there, do they get a part of that?
Typically, the way it all would be worked out in some kind of negotiation,
Okay.
but in some cases, it might just be that they're renting the space.
Okay, so they get
That
money
they're
for
just
it.
leasing that space to that restaurant.
Yeah.
So they're going to get money in in like a form of a monthly
But
lease.
it's gonna be the set, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. All right, so let's talk about this right here. So we have a 200-room property. These are the number of rooms that we sold. We're going to put it all together. The different rates that we sold it at. So we're going to figure out what our total revenue is. Okay. This is our total rooms sold. Okay. And then we're going to use these 2 numbers to get these 3 figures. All right. So in the last 10 minutes of class, let's work on this together. Okay. I'm going to hit pause just for a moment, and then I'll give you about 5 minutes to start working on it. Compare answers with your neighbors, see if you're on the right track, and then we'll get going, okay? To help you get started, first thing you can do is you can add up those numbers, and then you can multiply each one of these to give those numbers, and then add all those up to get your total revenue. So that's what I want you to look for first, those 2 numbers, 1 and 2. Go for it. All right, in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and start working on this. You can keep working if you want to, or follow along. Alfred, how many rooms total did we sell?
150 rooms.
Okay, so we sold 150 rooms total. Okay, Danny, what was 75 rooms sold at 185? Okay. 50 rooms at $95 on a Valle.
Which one?
The second one.
Oh, it's 4,750.
Okay. And then the third one, 25 rooms at 105. Sandra. 26.25. Okay. So now we add all those together. We good so far? Michaela, what was our total revenue?
13,750.
So we brought in total $13,750. Okay? So let's talk about this now. Occupancy percentage. How do we figure out occupancy percentage? Pamela. Right? Pamela? No. Paula. Sorry, wrong P. Paula. Okay, so occupancy percentage, it's a percentage, so what are we looking for? Part over the whole, right? So what do we do? What's our part? Good. So our 150 rooms, we divide that by our whole of 200 rooms, and we get 75%. All right. 75%, nice and even. Well, not even, whole. Nice and whole number. Okay, so now our ADR, average daily rate. Did we sell all the rooms at the same rate?
No.
We didn't. And so we want to figure out what our average was. Some we sold at 105, 85 was our lowest. So we take our total revenue, and but how many rooms did we sell? 150 rooms sold. And that gives us $91.66. Okay. RevPAR. I'll do this one in green so it stands out a little bit different. We use the same revenue number, but in this case, we have to look at our total available rooms. Okay. So now what is our RevPAR? 75. Unless we are at 100% occupancy, RevPAR is always lower than ADR. We're taking the same number, but dividing it by more. So our RevPAR is always less than our ADR. Unless we have 100% occupancy. Then it'll be the same. Okay? 68.75. Questions, comments, concerns about this? Okay, so let me stop.